The Stricker Ranch house is a historical home. People lived, were born, and died here. All kinds of strangers from all kinds of places and lands came and stayed at this house. What part of them still resides here? So many stories, so many things have happened here. People claim to have seen apparitions. People have claimed to have heard things. People have claimed to seen ghostly lights. These are questions that SEIPO is interested in answering. So join us tonight when SEIPO investigates the Stricker Ranch home here in Hanson, Idaho.
Hi, I'm Scott Bryan for the Southeast Idaho Paranormal Organization, and we're very happy to be here today at the historic Stricker Ranch located on the original Oregon Trail. I thought the Stricker Ranch house was a really great place to investigate. It had a lot of great history and a lot of really neat people that were involved with that house.
I really enjoyed going to the Stricker Ranch just because of the history of the area. I'd never been to that area prior to our investigation, so I was really fascinated by learning more about the area and then being able to go onto site.
This is the Stricker house that was built in 1900. The original Stricker house burned down in 1900. It was built in 1865. It sits on the Oregon Trail. This was the first trading post in the Magic Valley, and it was the largest stage top between Fort Hall and Fort Boise. There have been people die out here just like in any place. To my knowledge, I think that I know about, there's been 6 people that have died. There's Dowle Bill that was shot out here, and Herman and Lucy Stricker both died out here. And then there were 2 children. One of the Stricker children died when he was 2 years old out here. And then there was a young girl that was traveling through on a wagon train that passed away. And she's buried out in the orchard. And then there was also another gentleman, I believe his last name was McIntyre. And he was crushed between 2 wagons. And he is buried in the graveyard. I think it's interesting that people always attach a lot of hauntedness to older places when I think spirits are everywhere or beings are everywhere. So I don't think it has to necessarily be an old place. And I don't think you need to come in the middle of the night to do that stuff. I think you can do it at any time of the day. So if you want to come out for a guided tour on Sunday from 1 to 4, come on out. So
I was an original member of the board of the Friends of Stricker Ranch, where we are now. It's an old home that is out in the country about 6 miles south of Kimberly-Hanson area. And on this home site is the only existing building still standing on the Oregon Trail. It was built in 1865 and is still standing. It was a trader's store in the beginning when there was an influx of travel after the Civil War. People came through here, and so the trader's store was an interesting place for them to stop and get food and supplies. It was a very important stopping point. But more than that, it was built as a way station along with the stagecoach stop that was constructed here with the Ben Halliday stage line. And it was in 1865 when they built the store, and the stage line was just the year before. So this was a connecting point for the Kelton Road, the Oregon Trail, and the stage line. All came here. This was the only source of supply for all of those things, as well as for the miners north in the Snake River Canyon. There were several little mining communities there. The Stricker site had the stage station, had a big barn for the horses, had the store prior to the building of this house. Then they also had a home for the Stricker family, and what they called a joss house, which was a ceremonial place for the Chinese to smoke opium, which was legal, but most people didn't like it, so they had their own place to do that. They weren't allowed to smoke it anywhere else. And they had the saloon and blacksmith shop. That was basically all. It was just a very small place. And there weren't a lot of people living here, but a lot of people came through here.
I've been a volunteer here for just under a year. I first came out here about 5 years ago for a Mother's Day festival that we have every year, and fell in love with it. It felt like kind of coming home. It's always been warm and comfortable, and something has always drawn me here. I just love the history, and I wish people would take more interest in the history here. Curtis spoke about the house, the original house burning down. I don't know if anyone told the story. Lucy Stricker actually pulled out her own bedroom furniture by herself of the burning house, and we have that original furniture here. She was not a large woman. She was a very tiny woman, and it's a very heavy bedroom set, but she pulled that out of a burning house to save it by herself. So I love those kind of stories.
Stricker Ranch, I was caretaker at Stricker Ranch back in 1999 or 2000 for about 6 months. Tried to spend as little time there as I could, inside anyhow, especially in the evening. Lots of noises, noises I didn't recognize. It seemed like there was a piano or maybe a turntable or a phonograph or something playing music off and on, and usually in the evening hours. Another notable there was in the bedroom, there was a door leading to the Stricker mansion part of the house. Above the door was the transom window. It would seem at night you'd go to bed and the window would be closed, and in the morning it would be open. Just nothing there that I ever saw images of, but just lots of noises, lots of eerie feelings, lots of cold breezes.
I think it depends on the people coming in, what their intentions are. If they come in looking for a creepy house, they'll find a creepy house. If they're coming looking for a beautiful historical home, they'll find it. It really just depends on the person. I think every person's experience is different, and it depends on what their intentions are. They can find both.
I lived in the house next door to the Stricker Ranch, and I saw 2 ghosts. One of them, I was sitting on the couch, and it was about 2 o'clock in the morning when I woke up, and I sat up and I saw a lady in a nightgown walk out of the bathroom and on into the kitchen. And I wasn't scared. It wasn't anything that was real scary, but it's just something that stayed in my mind. And then the other ghost was, I was laying in bed and I sat up real fast and the door opened to my room and a guy with a cowboy hat on said, "Get out of Anne's room." And that was pretty disturbing, so I left my house that night. Well, I've talked to people and they say when they drive by here they can see lanterns waving out in the fields around this place.
One of the people who came through here was a man by the name of William Dowle, and William Dowle is buried in the cemetery. Bill Dowle had been arrested for stealing horses from the cavalry in Malad, Idaho, from the cavalry near Fort Hall, and sent him to the State Territorial Prison in Boise, where he served a term of a couple of years. When he was released, he needed to get back to his family in Franklin. So the first thing he did was go steal a horse to go get back home. So he stole the horse, rode out of town. Someone saw him. It happened to belong to a notable person, and they reported it immediately. The sheriff, in the meantime, who was hot on his trail, beelined straight for this area because he knew he'd have to stop at Rock Creek. There was no other place to stop. Pretty soon, Bill Dowle did come in to the station. He came in on foot, but they never wanted to turn a man away, so they fed him, gave him a meal, and then while he was eating, they went out and looked around and they found the horse out in the sage, and they knew it was the same horse, so they arrested him and put him in chains in the front of the store, and they started to tease him, and they reversed his name and called him Dowdle Bill. They packed him on the next stage north, and he headed for Boise, and he was tried and sentenced again to prison. When he got out the next time, well, what he told the people here was, when he left, was that, "I will come back and make the place stink with dead men. I'm going to come back and kill everybody. I'm going to kill the guy that arrested me and his helper. You're all dead." He went out and he just started shooting indiscriminately in the street. He was still angry and he still wanted to kill everybody. So he shot the blacksmith, and he later died, and he shot another man. He kept firing around, and then a bullet pierced the doorway of the little store, and the clerk at the store grabbed a gun and shot Bill Dowle. And as he lay dying in the street, according to Charlie Walgamot's book, the last words he said were, "Such is life, boys," in the days of '49. And I am absolutely positive that he's wandering around out here. I have not had an experience, but I know that he's out here. He's a vindictive man, and it just seems possible to me. He wanted to get home, and he never made it.
When we got there, we divided up into our team. There were several people there that they were interviewing, and so I did have an opportunity to go upstairs, kind of wander around a little bit upstairs before we really started investigating and take some pictures and things. Later on, we did divide up into teams.
Going down into the dry cellar. You want to go, or?
Oh, sure.
Just don't want to trip and kill myself either.
Yeah, no. Okay.
I wouldn't exactly suggest sitting a whole lot, but
yeah, no, that's totally fine.
it is really cold in this spot.
I know, like that's where I was standing and I was freezing. If you're here, can you try a little harder to change the temperature for us? Make us know, let us know that you're here with us. Did you try to get out, or did they have people guarding you pretty nicely?
If you did try to get out, what was your plan?
Break the rocks.
Chisel away at the rocks. If you can hear us, this blue device in my hand, if you come and wave your hand in front of this little silver thing that's sticking out from it, the temperature will change, and that'll help us know that you're here with us. This got a really cold spot, but the temperature didn't change.
I know, like I'm freezing right here.
Looking at this place, imagine them being locked up in here as a prisoner at night.
I know, it would be so cold, especially in the winter.
I know, winter just and dark as dark can be.
I know.
So come 5, 6 o'clock, you just
Dark.
just depressing.
Did you get any blankets or light or anything, or were you in here just like we are? Can you get it to go any lower than 35.5?
How about an even 35 just before we go here shortly?
Yeah, we're going to leave pretty soon, so if you could get it down to a 35 even.
36 is good, but one more.
One more down. You're doing so good. 7, 36. Am I scaring you? Do you want me to hold it out a little more? 36.0, you were there. 35.8. Thank you so much. Can you do that one more time? Will you do it so I can show Brett that you were giving me a 35.9 or 35.8? 36.1, 0, 5, 6, 1, 6, 0.
It's kind of glaring on it. There we go.
Okay. Come on.
35. No, it dropped to like 35.9, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. And then the
35.8. Okay, it glared, but...
Oh, sorry.
That's alright.
Do you need me to move this? 35.9. 35. Come on, get it down to that 8. One more time.
35.8, great.
Thank you.
That was cool.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, we appreciate that. The first place Becky and I investigated was the dry cellar. And the dry cellar was really neat. It was kind of creepy being in there. It's pitch black. What was interesting is while we were in there conducting an EVP session, we also had an ambient thermometer with us, which reads the temperature of the outlying air. And as Becky was holding on to it and asking questions, we noticed that there was some slight temperature fluctuations.
We had a steady reading of 38.9 around there, and when we asked it to go down to a 35.8, it immediately did. When that happened, I was really excited and was really eager to investigate more and see if we could get the spirit to communicate with us more, maybe make noises with us some more, or talk to us in any way.
So the first place that Lisa and I investigated were the Stricker Ranch grounds. And around the Stricker Ranch, there of course are a lot of farm fields. It's an agricultural area, but in the immediate vicinity of the Stricker Ranch house, there is an apple orchard. In that apple orchard, there are reportedly several people buried in that area, including some of the Stricker children. As people arrived on the stagecoach at the Stricker Ranch house, some of them were sick and stayed at the house and passed away while they were staying there. As these people would pass away, they would bury them in the orchard surrounding the house. There have been reports of figures seen walking through the orchard and voices heard. There's also Rock Creek, which runs right on the side of the Stricker Ranch house. Reportedly, there was a man who drowned in it, and his apparition has been reportedly seen in the vicinity of the creek that is located maybe 200 yards behind the house.
John and I were teamed up together, and we got to walk around. We didn't really have any, I didn't really feel anything where I was nervous or feel any paranormal things. I did really enjoy going down into the dry cellar and into the wet cellar down in below ground, kind of walking through those. That was very fascinating to me.
I went out to the cemetery about 3 times that night. The cemetery is located maybe a mile away from the Stricker Ranch house. It's actually today located in the middle of a cow pasture. So in order to access the cemetery, we have to open up a gate, drive into a pasture, which of course is full of cows, and then drive to it. It's probably 8 or 9 graves in there. None of them are marked, but you can tell that they are graves because of the rocks that were put on top. I think that my initial feelings about the cemetery were that, number one, it seems to be kind of an isolated place. And when we were there, it was very quiet. It was cold that night. The stars were out. They were shining. While we were in the cemetery, we simply did some EVPs. I like to be as respectful as we can in cemeteries, because even though those people have been there a long time ago, they are still people, and we should still respect their memory and the people who, were their family members.
John and I had the privilege of going out to the cemetery that's just about a mile away from the house several times throughout the evening. But being out there when it's dark and being at an old cemetery with unmarked graves that just have old wood headstones really adds an element of creepiness to it.
We did later on go to an old abandoned house, an older house. I didn't really feel anything in the house as far as paranormal. I wasn't nervous in the house, and we did do an investigation with all members there at that time.
When we first got to the Stricker Ranch, Trevor had told me a story about when he had lived in that second abandoned house next to Stricker Ranch, where he was sitting on a couch watching TV, and suddenly an apparition of a lady in white simply walked through one door and went into the kitchen. He also said that one night when he was in his bedroom, a cowboy opened up his door and simply said, "Get out of Anna's room." So that was the only reason why I felt a little bit unnerved in there.
At the old abandoned house, I didn't really feel anything. I didn't think there was any presence there. There may be something there that occurs later on, but at the time we were there, I really didn't feel anything.
During the investigation, we caught some great evidence. One of the best pieces was up on the second floor. We had placed a Sony recorder in a bedroom on the second floor, and we captured an EVP. In this EVP, it's nothing earth-shattering, but it's simply two breaths. We get one breath followed by another. Now, the reason I like this so much is because we have proof that there was absolutely no one on the second floor at that time. Many times in our investigation, we worry if, somehow someone on the second floor said something and we just had one of these things where the noise bounced off the walls and up and somehow got to our recorder on the second floor. But I really don't think there's a lot of chance that someone was breathing on the first floor and it echoed all the way up to the second. That's why I really like this piece of evidence.
When we investigated the abandoned house next to the Stricker Ranch house, we caught an EVP which appears to be a growl. Now, there does seem to be some debate amongst our group what that growl is. I personally believe that it has tone and depth to it, which makes me believe that it is a voice or a sound emanating from somebody's throat.
One interesting piece of evidence that we did pick up in this abandoned house was something that comes across as either a slight growl, or as any high school or college boy knows that if you record passing gas on a recorder, sounds just like this.
Everyone's coming. We need a Denny's. We need a Denny's.
Another part of the night, we were all investigating, and we were scattered throughout the Stricker Ranch, but there was no one on the second floor. Our digital recorder that we had placed up there caught a very interesting EVP, but it almost sounds like we get some movement in the room, and then almost a voice that is trying to appear or say something. And you can almost sound like someone talking into a walkie-talkie that's breaking up. As I was reviewing the evidence, I came across a video from our DVR system. It shows a really big orb coming up from the bed of Lucy Stricker, and it kind of just floats over.
We had a camera set up in the room where Lucy Stricker died, and we found an orb going back through the evidence. Now, normally we don't take this into account because there are so many dust particles and insects, but in this case the orb was rather opaque, and it was also very large. And putting that with the evidence, we thought that maybe this was a genuine orb.
It is solid, and the light is actually blocked out. Normally on pieces of dust that we've captured, the light seems to be translucent through the orbs.
It emerges from the bottom of the bed and rises. We can really tell that it's a very large orb just from the things that it's around and from judging. And it retains its size as it floats over the bed. It doesn't become transparent until it has crossed the entire bed and is now falling back towards the pillows. I really thought that was a neat piece of evidence. Generally, I'm not impressed with orbs because they're just dust. But this one, it's really hard to explain why it was so big and just so bright.
I thought the investigation by SEIPO overall was a really good one. Again, we are there to find the history. We're there to find not just haunted locations, but interesting locations. So the Stricker Ranch is an excellent example of that. Great history, compelling stories, just a great place to visit.
Being my first investigation with SEIPO, I loved it. I thought it was so much fun. The atmosphere was very professional, very exciting to be around. I wanted to keep going and do more. And
I really liked Stricker Ranch. I thought it was a great investigation, and one thing I really enjoyed was all of the history. I thought it was a real honor to be able to go and investigate a stop on the Oregon Trail. We didn't catch anything, in my opinion, earth-shattering, but what we did catch, again, was very solid and very hard to explain. I never really felt creeped out at any part of the night. There might have been a few times on the second floor of the Stricker Ranch that I felt a little uncomfortable. But for the most part, it was a wonderful investigation in a really neat location, and it'd be just an awesome place to take family and visit for a day.
Old Dowle Bill was a hard old case. He never would repent. He was never known to miss a meal or ever pay a cent. Old Dowle Bill, like all the rest, he did to death resign, and in his bloom went up the flume in the days of '49. Those days of old, those days of gold, those days of '49.